Big update now. Togashi has tweeted again with our very first shot of new Hunter x Hunter. We also have a confirmed number of chapters being published, and it is more than 4. Plus even more stuff, because after 3 years of starvation, we are finally starting to eat some good. But Togashi has posted our very first image from a new Hunter x Hunter manuscript, and it is a tree, which sounds kind of mundane, but if you are familiar with the series and where we are right now, then a tree is anything but. It's actually quite unusual. Currently, we're stuck in the middle of the ocean on a round whale-like ship, so trees are a thing that's kind of surprisingly hard to come by. So for the first time, at least I recall in human history, an image of a fictional tree set Twitter on fire, with speculation that this could potentially be an image from the Dark Continent itself, or perhaps even Whale Island where Gon currently resides, or even a shot from the Zoldyck estate on Kukuru Mountain. It could be almost anywhere that isn't a big ship on big water, although it could also be that as well. Because this is Hunter x Hunter, nothing is impossible, and this could easily be a short flashback or even the result of a Nen ability, like say Melody, whose musical powers are depicted with illusions of nature. In any case, it's pretty impossible to predict exactly what this is. But what I'm more impressed by is that Togashi is actually drawing this more background atmospheric sort of image. Usually this sort of stuff was handled by his assistants because it's a lot of tedious line work that Togashi he just wasn't physically capable of due to his condition. But speaking of, some of the best news we have here is Togashi's assistant confirming on Twitter that there will be at least 10, count 'em, 10 chapters of Hunter x Hunter, implying that they will start being released when the 10 chapters are made, which is a lot more than standard. Typically mangaka work anywhere between 2 to 4 chapters in advance for weekly series, that is. So I imagine that waiting for those 10 is a way of giving us that bit of extra leeway should Togashi need to take things extra slowly. And probably one of my favorite things in the ever were the reactions of Megumi Han and Maria Ise, the voices of Gon and Killua, who both elected to post some simple yet emotional drawings of their respective characters. And I do think that crying is appropriate because of all of the characters who are likely to appear in this new batch of chapters, Gon and Killua are not 2 of them. But I also asked what your predictions were for new Hunter x Hunter, so let's kick into that with Omg. There are so many possibilities, but I hope we see more of the Phantom Troop and Zodiacs interacting. That excites me, which is a very specific and undeniably exciting desire. In fact, to date, we've only seen one interaction between Mizai Storm, Illumi, and Kaluto. It is fairly inevitable though, except for the ones guarding beyond Netero. Most of the Zodiacs are stationed on Deck 3, which just so happens to be where one of the major mafia families is also stationed. But also, the goal of the Phantom Troop is to completely sweep the ship in their hunt for Hisoka. But given that the Hunter Association have been charged with the security of this entire ship, it does feel like a potential conflict with the Zodiacs could be on the cards, or even a potential alliance. There may be a situation in which the Zodiacs see more value in allowing Crollo and his bunch of Crolloites to quell some of the trouble aboard the ship, because the troop are already very much embroiled in the mafia stuff to varying degrees. So look, essentially what we have brewing here is a great big effing mess. IDK when, but I would like to eventually see a time skip in the story that takes place after all of the passengers aboard the Black Whale go mysteriously missing, and then Killua and Gon reunite to look for Kurapika and Lyorio. So that would be a really bold way to kick off this set of chapters, to completely cut away from the Succession War, have it be like 6 months after the Black Whale once set sail, and then Gon receives news that all of his friends have vanished. It would be a reasonable way to inspire him back into action, nen or no nen. I don't know though, I don't want Gon involved in this. He's a tricky character and his personality doesn't really fit into what Togashi is trying to create here with this very politically charged arc, which is all about the dynamics of global powers and even the inner conflict within one particular kingdom. Whereas Gon should be off doing other Gon things like homework and catching fish. I got a feeling that the next 10 chapters might wrap up almost 80% of the Succession War arc. That'd be crazy. And yeah, like, this might sound ridiculous, but I definitely wouldn't count it out. Every time Togashi comes back from a long hiatus, it becomes very apparent that his priorities with storytelling have changed. The ideas that he was exploring a few years ago might not necessarily interest him anymore, and he'll be captivated by the thought lust of exploring something new and relevant to where he currently is as a person. Because for better or worse, Hunter x Hunter it's actually a very selfish story. Togashi doesn't necessarily draw for his readers as much as Togashi draws for Togashi, meaning that if all this time has passed, Togashi's seen native Game of Thrones and has simply become bored of the Throne War concept, then I can absolutely see him wrapping it up swiftly and moving on to whatever the next thing is. I mean, he did this with classic Hunter x Hunter, more or less just ending arcs, not necessarily when the story was done, but when he was done personally. I guess I would describe Togashi as a kind of narrative tourist. He likes to get there, see the sights, but very very rarely does he stay to fully explore the stories he set up. I would like to see Lyorio with OP medical ability on the Dark Continent. He definitely needs his time to shine. And yeah, I would be as well. I don't know if I'd bet on it though. I think that the best thing we can say about Lyorio right now is that he's there. Since setting sail, Lyorio hasn't actually done anything except hanging around in Cheadle's medical ward, and he's quite powerless compared to the sheer insanity going on around him. But at the same time, that's probably where his great potential is. I like that one of our main characters is, for all intents and purposes, just a dude. And in particular, he serves as a necessary counterbalance for Kurapika. You could maybe even equate Lyorio to being like Kurapika's Killua. Just as Killua was there when Gon was engulfed in darkness, Lyorio could be there for when Kurapika does ultimately snap. And you know, if anything, without Lyorio, I'd say that Kurapika had a near 100% chance of not returning from this voyage. I'm excited to see what Theta will do next. I'm not. Because as badly as I feel for Kurapika right now, at least he has a chance. With Theta, she has a very, very dark ending incoming. To her credit, very few people live this many days in such close proximity to 4th Prince Rydnik, especially if they're female. I mean, usually by now I probably would have sliced her up and made some sort of grotesque art piece out of her corpse. But the main thing is the Guardian Spirit Beast. Rydnik's beast operates on a 3-strike system. Every time someone lies to Rydnik, that is a strike. And Theta has now lied twice, and was also warned that the next time she did it, she would cease to be human. And I feel like as terrifying as it is, we need to see that 3rd time. We'll be getting a Chairman Netero into the Dark Continent flashback. Yeah, I suppose that's another one of the infinite explanations for Togashi's tree. And look, I wouldn't be complaining, at all. Netero has been to the Dark Continent twice, and we've only seen a tiny sliver of one of those occasions. Although I'm not entirely sure what we'd achieve by going back to that. Firstly, because we are so balls deep in the Succession War that focusing on the wider Dark Continent does seem like a big shift. However, as I said, it's entirely possible, because Hunter x Hunter is all about what Togashi wants to do, traditional rules of storytelling be damned. I think what I would rather see is a flashback of Beyond's journey to the Dark Continent, purely because I just want to know more about him and his motivations. He is so stupidly captivating. The theory that Hisoka is Illumi. Yes. I won't dive too horrendously deeply into this because I've already made quite an extensive video about it, but in case you're unaware, the leading thought regarding Hisoka right now is that he is indeed aboard the ship, but that he has used his new bungee gum powers to imitate Illumi. And I know, just like the stupid gum itself, this sounds like a bit of a stretch, but the evidence for this idea is simply too overwhelming to ignore. There's very simple things like Illumi acting out of character, even when it comes to his chosen pronouns, because curiously enough, he's adopted a lot of Hisoka's speech patterns, as well as some of Hisoka's fashion sense with the knee pads and everything. Illumi has never worn knee pads before now. Hisoka, on the other hand, is a knee pad pro. And there's also the fact that Togashi has more or less very sneakily confirmed it on the cover and author comment of volume 36. And if you want to know more, and there is so much more to know, then I highly recommend you watch this video. Because if you've never heard it before, this theory will completely change the way that you see the current arc. My prediction is for Hunter x Hunter that we will be seeing more hiatuses. Yeah, so quite a few of you said something along these lines, and hey, you're not exactly wrong. The bittersweet truth is that this is not going to be a full return to form, and there never will be. In fact, it's become very common to see Togashi produce a batch of 10 chapters, then take another hiatus, although not usually as long as the one we've just endured. But yeah, before our big 3-year drought, the pattern was something like publish 10 chapters, 6-month hiatus, another 10 chapters, vanish for 6 months, and so on and so forth. Which I suppose was bearable because at least that meant that we were getting Hunter x Hunter once, maybe twice a year if we were lucky. So I honestly wouldn't expect more than 10 chapters before our next hiatus, but hey, the great thing about the number 10 is it's more than the number 0. So it's going to be a pretty solid 3 months or so while it lasts. Beyond does something insane, Paristan does something douchey, and Rydnik does something artistic. I don't think that the 3 of those are mutually exclusive. I feel like everything that Beyond, Paristan, and Rydnik do are simultaneously insane, douchey, and artistic. I suppose someone we haven't touched on yet specifically is Paristan though, because we're still very much waiting to see how he, Jing, and the rest of the Beyond expedition team are actually planning to arrive on the Dark Continent. Because they could be aboard the Black Whale 1, but we've not been given any indication that that is indeed the case. With his connections to the Karkian Empire, I'm sure that Beyond could have used some king power to sneak them in. However, one thing that's always stuck in my mind was Steiner's words about how humanity has never officially made a round trip to the Dark Continent without the Gatekeeper and the Guide, very much implying that unofficially someone has, and that there is a potential different way to get there. But then again, if Beyond's team did know about that, then why did he go to all of the effort into manipulating pretty much the entire world to craft this expedition? Questions. So many questions. The clash. The troop is finally getting involved and killing the third prince. Crollo is stealing that ability. The other princes are also something we haven't really spoken a lot about in this video. So the third prince being referred to here is Zhang, who doesn't actually have a Nen ability. And he's actually one of the princes who was unaware of Nen before the Succession War began. Although right now he does have his funky guardian spirit beast, which allows him to produce coins that do things. And I'm sorry about how vague I'm being there, but even Zhang himself is pretty unaware of their abilities at the moment. And as for Crollo, that brings up an interesting question over whether or not he's actually capable of stealing guardian Nen beasts. I think the biggest problem in that regard is that most of the princes don't understand how their beasts function, or how Nen functions actually, because one of the requirements to steal an ability with Skill Hunter is to ask the victim a question about Nen and have them answer. So most of the princes are kind of weirdly immune from Crollo at the moment due to their sheer ignorance of Nen, but I do think it would be very interesting for Crollo to steal a spirit beast. We will see more videos from NewWorldReview. Yes, you will. In order to make sure that people are ready for the new chapters, I'm currently planning a series of Dark Continent Succession War recap videos because there's so much to know. Togashi has gone full force with characters, plot, and world building to the point where I definitely don't expect anyone to remember what they were actually reading 3 whole years ago. So yeah, look forward to that.